Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today, as I mentioned in the previous video, we're going to be going over my vision, goals, and plan of attack for this project. Now I want to touch base and tell you why I think it's so important for you to set a vision and a goal for your project, because it helps you along the way setting up your plan of attack and what kind of parts you're willing to spend the money on and maybe you don't want to spend the money on. So my vision and goal for this car is to be able to make it a daily driver. And to do that, I need the reliability and I want the modernness of a new car. But with the modern reliability, I don't want to give up this classic styling. So a lot of what I'll be doing is the things that you won't be able to see if you just see me driving down the road. But if you hop in the car and behind the driver's seat, you'll know that this car no longer has the same technology in it that it did back in the 50s. So of course it's going to be kind of challenging, especially with these resto mods. The price can be way up there and the money value of your car will be down here. So something that I'm gonna have to be careful and balance out along the way. And I'll be sure to share with you guys as well. And if you guys have any tips or ideas for me as well, please put them down in the comments and let me know what you think. And now I'm gonna go ahead and hop into the plan of attack. And I do know that this is probably hard for you guys to read, but bear with me and I'll walk us around the car to show you what's going on. So the first thing I'm gonna be tackling on this project is the front suspension and the brakes. Now when I'm talking about doing the front suspension, I'm talking lower control arms, upper control arms, upgrading to some coilovers and also power steering, as well as getting rid of these aftermarket single piston disc brakes and replacing them with a 4-piston setup. By replacing all these components with more upgraded technology, it'll really give me that drivability that I'm looking for when I or anybody else sits behind the wheel for the first time. Now of course, I can't just do the front of the car and expect the drivability to be where I want it without doing the rear of the car. So what these cars had stock was a traditional leaf spring and shock combo. Now this won't give me that drivability that I'm looking for, so I'll be upgrading to a 4-link style, and as well as putting a 4-piston brake back here as well. So all these upgrades that I'll be doing to the front and rear will really help me get that drivability that I'm looking for. And something to note here is that this isn't the original rear end differential that was originally on the car. This is actually a Ford 9-inch that's in here with a limited slip differential and 3.55 gearing with also 31 spline axles. So this really gives me the ability to throw down more torque without the risk of breaking the rear end. After I finish all these suspension parts that I need to do, which is probably going to take a lot of time, it's a lot easier to talk about it in a video than to actually get it all done. But the next thing I'm going to be doing is the electrical system. So of course this car already has one because it still does kind of turn on, but it doesn't really drive that well. But everything on this car is pretty old and a lot of the insulation on the wiring is becoming tired and worn out, and it's just time for an upgrade. As well as this gives me the opportunity to make sure I have everything I need electrically to run everything stock and anything aftermarket that I choose to add on. This will also give me a chance to build knowledge in the car itself, so if I do have issues, I'll have an easier time going back and figuring out what's going wrong. After the electrical system is all done and it's ready to go, we're going to be jumping into the powertrain. When this car was stock, it had a small block Chevy 265. Now as time went on, we went ahead and swapped out and put a crate 350 off at Jegs. And as you can see from this video, the engine bay is pretty messy, so I'm going to have to do a lot of cleanup as time goes on. Now originally when I was looking for my power plant, I was running between 500 to 600 horsepower because I felt like that would give a power to weight ratio that'd be really fun to drive. But as you look into the prices for those motors, it was definitely out of my budget and everything that would go along with it. So I found a great option that's between the Dallas and San Antonio area of a shop that makes small block 383 strokers that can make about 395 horsepower depending on the options you put on. Now 395 horsepower will be plenty enough for this car. Something to note is that right now it does have the original 3-speed transmission, which quite frankly has gotten pretty torn out from just this crate 350 that we have in here now. So I'll also be looking to upgrade the transmission either to a 5 or 6-speed transmission that can withstand the torque of the new motor. Another reason to add that 5 or 6-speed transmission is to get better overdrives and just better gear ratios in general. Now that the car can pretty much drive around, it's time to tackle where I'm going to be spending most of my time when it's done. And that is doing the interior. So that means getting new seats, headliner, carpets, repainting the dash, steering wheel, and setting everything up the way I want it. That also means putting AC so when it's in the dead of summer, it's still nice and cold in here, as well as putting in a modern radio and sound system so I can be bumping down the road. As you can see looking down the driver and the passenger area, that the dash in these cars can look super cool. but it's definitely in need of some upgrades as we don't have door panels and also the seats look like crap. Another thing that needs to be added to this car or refined are the seatbelts. These cars are a lot less safe than they are nowadays. These cars don't have airbags, they don't have a crush point. So if you're in an accident, you're pretty screwed if you don't at least have a seatbelt. So to give myself a fighting chance if that unfortunate thing does happen, I gotta put in some seatbelts. And finally, the last thing we'll be doing is all the body work and the paint. Now the reason why I'm waiting to do it towards the end is because as I'm doing all these upgrades to everything else, there's a damn good chance that I'm gonna scratch the paint or make dents. So I might as well wait to do it to the end to fix everything that's going on. And as we walk around, you can see that the styling on these cars is super cool and unique, but there are some bad spots on this car right now. Here we're at the front of the car looking at the hood and the fenders, and you can just see how poor of condition this paint is in. So, and it's not just about the paint, also the metal underneath needs to be protected. Now luckily for the most part, since this car was in the Southwest and didn't have to deal with a lot of salt or snow or anything like that, there's not a whole lot of rust on this car, but there are some known spots that there is some rust, as well as some pretty big dents that I'm gonna have to work on once I strip all the paint and the Bondo from it. With everything combined, the exterior of this car is going to take a lot of man hours. Between me and professionals, I'll probably end up hiring to paint the car. This will be the first thing you see as it's driving down the road, so we gotta make sure all the details are right and it looks great. Now that I've gone over the baseline for what this project is gonna follow, I want to cover one last thing, and that's my budget. Right now, I have a budget idea of about $35,000 to $40,000. Obviously, I'd like to stay below that if I could, but that's the max range I'm really looking to spend. I'm going to do everything along the way to be proactive in planning out my purchases, items, and make sure everything works together, and also doing as much searching as I can to find the best price on the products. And as I've mentioned before, these resto mods can really climb up in price as you start adding on more things. So I'm going to be doing my best to make sure I can find the right balance of new parts to old parts. That way I don't have to go out and spend a crap load of money on new parts. But also making sure that I stay aligned with my project objectives so I can get this car exactly how I want it. For example, when I was looking at this car, like I said earlier, I wanted 500 to 600 horsepower, but that was really out of my price range. Also noticed something I really wanted, mainly for aesthetics, was the 6 piston calipers. But that was about $1,000 more with the suspension setup that I'm going with, so I opted out for the 6 piston calipers and went ahead with the 4 piston calipers, because that's going to give me the braking power I need. So I'll be doing these comparisons for myself to pick and choose the best parts for my project. Alright guys, so that pretty much sums up this video for today. If you have any comments, suggestions, or critiques of my plan, please comment down below so I can check them out. Also, if you haven't already, please go back and check out the first video where I introduced the project to you and give you a brief history of the car. And don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want, so that way you can stay up to date on the latest videos and also participate in Project Dory. Now in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and start with step 1 as we went over the suspension. So I'm going to lay out all the parts that I bought, give an explanation why, and we'll go ahead and start the installation. So I'll see you next time when we get started on our project.